Hello, what is going on, everyone? This is Riley with the Riley Reform channel, and today I want to rediscover the topic and discuss Facebook Marketplace. And no, I'm not talking about scamming this time. I already did that in another video. Instead, in this video, I wanted to talk about various tips, tricks, and helpful hints to sell your items quicker on Facebook Marketplace. I do want to start off this video by saying that this is all coming from the perspective of personal experience. I am by no means a third-party mega retailer with over 1,000 items shipped on Facebook Marketplace. I have just sold from personal experience. I have, however, sold every item that I've ever put on this site that I no longer have a use for. I sell items that I have upgraded from, and I also have sold plenty of items that I've never thought anyone in their right mind would buy, such as old used Crocs or tore up sound foam. I do believe that there are a few tricks to selling items on Facebook Marketplace, and I can instantly recognize certain things that turn me off from buying an item that I'm looking at. So what are some of the tips and tricks that I noticed after selling items on this site for over 4 years now? The first thing, and probably the most obvious thing, is that you need better pictures. When you look to buy an item off of this site, and if the picture is blurry, the background is cluttered, or the lighting is not good, would you really want to buy it? I highly doubt it. If the person cannot take the extra 10 seconds to make sure that the picture is in focus and it's clear, well, imagine how well they took care of that item when they're selling it. In my opinion, pictures are the single most important thing when you're selling an item on Facebook Marketplace. When you're selling something with multiple parts or multiple pieces, you want to make sure you take multiple pictures, and you also want to make sure you take different angles, and you also want to make sure you include everything that you are selling in with the pictures. So for example, I sold my old iPhone on Facebook. I took a picture of the iPhone, the front and the back of the iPhone, as well as the sides of the iPhone. I also took a picture of the box, I took a picture of the cables, the charging brick, and then finally I took a picture of everything all together. It is essential to include everything that you're selling in the pictures, and the reason is because people like pictures. I mean, some people may never even get to the description to know what else comes with the product. That's not to say that the description isn't important. It obviously is. I just think that pictures are even more important because I am a very, very visual person, and I assume that many other people are like me as well. So also, in addition to pictures, Facebook even introduced the ability to add a video to your listing. You want to make sure that you use this. Facebook says that users that add a video are 10 times more likely to receive clicks and to sell their item. Obviously, I can't tell whether or not this is true, but it doesn't hurt to have the video added into the listing at all. I would just add it anyway. The feature is there. You can quickly take a video showing your product. Again, just make sure that the lighting is good and you're filming in a clean environment. So next, I know I just mentioned the description, so that is what I'm going to talk about next. While I do think that the pictures are the single most important thing in a Facebook Marketplace listing, the description is definitely the next most important thing that you want to make sure you get right. So while it's super important to list everything clearly in the description, you want to make sure it is clean, easy to read, and also easy to follow. And what I mean by this is, do not write your description in long paragraph formats. I personally find that way harder to follow. Instead, I would format it in short, concise sentences or bullet points, and make sure you are very, very clear with what is included in the product or products that you are selling. I like to think of this scenario. So have you ever looked at a phone number? A phone number is never in one big chunk. It's in 3 to 4 number chunks. And then obviously the reason for that is it's much easier and simpler to remember small chunks rather than one big, long, continuous number. This can also be applied to your description, and this is what I have done on every Facebook Marketplace listing that I have sold. I start off most of my descriptions by saying what the item is and then why I'm selling it. So for example, I sold my old iPhone, my iPhone XS. So I would format my description as saying, this is my iPhone XS. I am selling it because I have upgraded to another phone. Just start off your description as simple as that. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. You don't really need to add anything more here in the first chunk. In the next small chunk, I would list everything that I am selling with the product. So going back to my iPhone example, I would personally make a bullet point list if I was selling my iPhone. So in here, I would say includes and then make the list. So I'd say includes the iPhone, a case, the charging cable, the wall adapter, the headphones. This was obviously when iPhones actually came with more than just the phone itself. And then I would also say it includes the box with the documentation. This is easy, concise, easy to read. Make sure you list everything very clearly that you are selling in your listing. Then finally, after that chunk of information where you list what you include, I usually mention a little bit more about the product. So for example, this iPhone was very well taken care of and was always in a case and screen protector. I have never had any issues with this phone. The price is firm at $500 or something similar to that. Obviously, it doesn't have to be exact. Every item varies. I would also include if you plan to ship the item or do local pickup, but I will discuss more on that later. So using my chunk method, I very clearly convey everything that I need without including the garbage that you don't need. It's very easy to follow, separate it into chunks, and it answers everything that the buyer needs to know. This is how you should format every description that you sell on Facebook. If you need to add more chunks, do so, but just make sure the chunks are very small rather than big paragraphs, because that's where people can get lost very, very easily. One more thing that I wanted to comment about the description is that you want to make sure you proof your description. Please proof your description. I cannot count the amount of times I've looked at a product, liked it, looked at the description, it's riddled with bad grammar and typos, and then just not wanted to buy it. This for me is a huge turnoff and needs to be fixed. Imagine looking at a product, liking it, and not buying it because you just had a bunch of typos. In my opinion, if you have typos, you just don't really care that much about what you're selling, and it's a huge turnoff for me. So you want to make sure that you fix this. And you can fix this in multiple ways. Either you need somebody to proof it, just have them read it, look at it. You can copy the description if you're on desktop on Facebook, throw it into a spell checker, throw it into Word. You could download Grammarly, throw it in there. Whatever, however you do this, the way that the description is presented matters, and it does need to be somewhat professional if you want to sell your product. So next, quickly, I want to discuss the title. I have found that the title is obviously very, very important, but I've never found it to sell an item quicker or easier depending on what the title was. I just simply name what I'm selling, and usually it always sells. So it's definitely not rocket science here. If anything, for generic items, I would keep the title a little bit more vague. For my iPhone, I named it iPhone XS 64GB, but for other items, I just keep it even simpler. So for example, for a pair of shoes that I sold, the brand was Nike. I just simply said Nike shoes and then included all the details in the description, like the size of the shoe, the condition, stuff like that, and they sold with no problem at all. I don't have too much other advice here other than just to keep your title simpler. I would not put in the title, for example, with my iPhone XS 64GB, like new condition, never scratched, open box 2021. That's just simply too long, too hard to follow, and Facebook might not know how to recommend your product. Facebook ultimately collects so much data and stores so much information about you that their recommendations are just fantastic, and they really, really know what to show people. So the title, while it's obviously very, very important, it seems to me that as long as you have a simple, easy to read title, Facebook recommendations are amazing, and they do the rest of the work for you, getting your product out there to people who might want to buy it. And then finally, for one of the last sections of this video, I know I won't be able to get through everything in one video. I did want to discuss how you decide to sell the product. So if you're selling something smaller, I would highly recommend you offer shipping, as it is about 5,000 times, which is not a real statistic, but it does significantly increase the number of people who will view your listing. Basically, think of it like this. If you offer something for just local pickup, it's only showing that product to people within a 50 to 100 mile radius of where you live. If you're able to offer shipping, there is no radius to where your item will be shown, as depending on how far the buyer is from the seller, the shipping price remains the same, at least from my knowledge. So basically, since you're in the United States, anybody in the United States that is looking at your item that can ship, they'll see the item if they search for it or if Facebook recommends it to them. So if you want to sell your items faster, I would strongly suggest selling it with the shipping option if you are comfortable doing so. I will be making an entire video dedicated to shipping items on Facebook Marketplace, because it can be a complicated topic which desires its own video. So definitely stay tuned for that, and make sure you are subscribed. If you truly want more exposure to your product, however, you almost have to consider using the shipping option. The things that I mentioned earlier, like the used Crocs, I know I could not have sold those if I did not use the Facebook Marketplace shipping option. Note that if you do choose this option, it is not free. You will have to box and pack the item yourself, and Facebook does take a small fee as well, which is 5% of the sale price. I know shipping may not be ideal for everyone, especially if you're selling a bigger item, but I do think you should at least consider it. Again, stay tuned for the video where I will be describing how shipping an item works on Facebook Marketplace and if it is worth it in the end. So those have been my tips and tricks on how I've sold all of the items I have ever put on Facebook Marketplace. This has just scratched the surface of Facebook. I know there are more tips to be discussed, but as I mentioned, I cannot fit all of that into one video, or it would probably be an hour long, and I'm sure this video is long enough for the people who want to watch it anyway. If you have any questions about selling items on Facebook, definitely let me know down below in the comments, as well as subscribing and liking the video for the YouTube algorithm so you could see more videos like this in the future. This has been Riley with the Riley Reformed channel. I hope to see you in the next video, and I hope your day is as pleasant as you are.